Breaking the Silence is a podcast that dives into the intricate and often challenging topics of grief and loss within relationships. Through insightful discussions, the podcast aims to explore how pain can be transformed into purpose, leading to healing and growth. By addressing themes such as inner child work and the journey towards feeling alive once more, this podcast offers a beacon of hope for those navigating difficult emotions. Ultimately, Breaking the Silence aims to guide listeners towards moving forward and embracing all the blessings that life has in store as they embark on a journey of self-discovery and spiritual fulfillment. I'm your guide through this journey, Renee Wallace, and I invite you to join me as we break the silence surrounding grief and loss, transforming pain into purpose and finding hope in the healing power of storytelling. Hello, my beautiful friends. How are you? So, today we are going to continue our journey through attachment styles, and we're going to dive into the topic that often carries a lot of misunderstanding, and that is the dismissive avoidant attachment. If you've ever found yourself pulling away when things get too close or feeling like you're better off handling life on your own, this episode is absolutely for you. But do not worry, there is no judgment here. We're all about understanding why we act the way we do and learning how to grow from it. I think the dismissive avoidant, a lot of times you'll hear it referred to as the DA, does absolutely get a really bad rap sometimes because of some of their coping strategies. But I'm here to tell you that, first of all, the avoidant and the anxious, they both basically have the same fear. It's basically like two sides of a coin. They both have this underlying fear of rejection and abandonment. The only difference is how it presents, how they cope. They just cope in basically opposite ways. But it all stems from the same thing. So, grab a cup of coffee or something to drink, get cozy, and let's talk about what it means to have a dismissive avoidant attachment style. Okay, so let's break down the DA and what it looks like. In simple terms, people with a dismissive avoidant style tend to value independence and self-sufficiency above all else. It's not that you don't want love or connection, but sometimes getting too close feels uncomfortable and maybe even suffocating. Like, it gets to be very overwhelming for the DA. And actually, the more they care about somebody, the scarier it gets to them, because they also have this feeling of, or this belief, I should say, of being defective or broken or something's wrong with them. They just can't quite get it right. And so they often get overwhelmed with the fact that they're overwhelmed first by the feelings, and they really care about the person. And then they also have this belief that they're eventually going to figure me out and figure out who I really am, and they're going to abandon me or reject me anyway, so I'll do it first, So it's self-sabotage a lot of times, well, most of the time, and a self-fulfilling prophecy, right? So some of the characteristics, like, you might find yourself withdrawing from emotional situations or avoiding deep conversations. And again, it's not because you don't care, but because vulnerability seems risky. And we've already talked about this with all the attachment styles. It begins as a child. Your emotional needs weren't consistently met. Often, you could have even been neglected. And a lot of times DAs don't even see this. Like they're like, oh no, my childhood was fine. And yeah, maybe the parents met their physical needs, but not their emotional needs. And maybe you were dismissed a lot. They were wrapped up in their own world and their own problems. And maybe you were even expected to maybe carry more of the load of what you should at your age. Maybe you, it's called an enmeshment, anyways, where you sort of get intertwined like with one of your parents. And anyways, so that can be another reason why that can happen. And so then you learn to rely on yourself because the adults around you weren't available in the way that you needed them to be. And if they dismissed you and was like, oh, stop your crying, knock it off, I don't have time to listen to this, or all the different things, then you learn that what's the point? What's the point in sharing what I need or what I want? My feelings don't matter. Nobody wants to hear it. And you can almost even believe like, well, something must be wrong with me that I have all these big emotions, which is totally normal as a child, right? But we maybe see our caregivers, you've seen your caregivers not show those emotions. So you begin to believe that you're defective, there's something wrong with you. And so you stuff them down in and hang on to them. So basically, it's important for you to know that this isn't a flaw. It's a coping mechanism that helped you get through tough times. You learn to take care of yourself. And in a way, that absolutely is very much a strength. It is, for sure. I will say, even though it's a coping mechanism, it is a maladaptive coping mechanism, meaning that it hurts you as well as the person that cares about you. So it's not beneficial though. So ways that dismissive avoidance show up in relationships, they tend, and again, I want to say this, there is no shame here. These are habits and behaviors that were formed to protect you. That is one thing I will say with the DA. They can often be have toxic shame, and they are just so hard on themselves instead of just being like, this is having compassion and saying, I had to learn this to protect myself. This was what I knew and what I grew up with. So you might feel like you have the need to pull away or withdraw when your partner tries to get too close emotionally. And it's not that you don't care about them, but your instinct is to protect your independence. Vulnerability might make you feel exposed, so you avoid it. And you might find it easier to keep conversations at a surface level, or to joke around when things get too serious. Because again, all that feels very uncomfortable for you. And another thing is you likely pride yourself on being able to handle things on your own, which can be a great quality. I very much am like, this is just being honest here. Like I have some of those traits of like, knowing that I can always count on myself and, so it is a good thing that you can handle things on your own, but it can also mean that you push people away, that actually want to support you. And you might actually need support. I was actually just talking with one of my kids the other day about this, of me wanting to teach them the difference between, I want them to be independent, correct? And to I don't want any of my kids to be codependent, like think that they need somebody to walk them through every step of everything. Like, I don't know how to do this. I want them to have the confidence to be able to figure things out and do things on their own. But I also want them to be able to recognize, you know what? I do actually need some help here, and not be afraid to ask for help. not be the lone wolf, right? Like, I can do it all on my own. I don't need anybody. I've got this. That is not how God intended us to live life. So some of the challenges that the DA will experience is difficulty with emotional, and I should stop here for a minute. And I do want to say the dismissive avoidant and the anxious attachment, both of them are all on a spectrum. So someone might be mildly avoidant or, all the way over on the other side of the spectrum, severely avoidant. And same for anxious, mildly anxious and severely anxious. So there's definitely a spectrum. So you will, sort of judge up for yourself of like, wow, you'll sort of figure that out. The more aware you become and the more you look at things, you'll begin to recognize it and be like, okay, I got it now. But one of the challenges is difficulty with emotional closeness. And so an opportunity for growth there would be to try to take small steps towards vulnerability, even something as simple as, let's say, like you're not super comfortable with physical touch. Like maybe a hug for you is like pretty quick. Like something as simple as setting a timer for 30 seconds with your significant other, with the person you're dating, whatever, and hugging them for 30 seconds. Just those small steps are helping you to build more capacity and more bandwidth to like have physical touch, or, even just like if you never hold hands or something, just little tiny things like holding hands for, a minute or whatever, baby steps, right? But so that is a good place to start, like I said, with like the hugging or something, but take the small steps forward, like sharing how you're feeling in the moment. And it can be the tiniest thing. And somebody that is in tune to you, like if they are doing the work, if they are already either secure or they are working towards security, they will pick up on that and they will see like that normally it is difficult for you to share your feelings and stuff. And so when you do share even the tiniest thing, maybe something about your mom or your dad with them, something personal and intimate, private, they will recognize that and they will see that you are making that effort to be vulnerable, to share a piece of yourself. So it doesn't mean you have to spill everything all at once. It's just taking that tiny little step to like share a little bit more. So the DA tends to withdraw during conflict. And I guess this would be a good place even to like interject the three things that DAs tend to struggle with is conflict, commitment, and communication. So they tend to withdraw during conflict. You can. And an opportunity there is even if you feel yourself getting overwhelmed, like maybe things are, especially this can happen, say like you've had a really great time together, you've hung out, there was a really intimate moment or evening or whatever, and you are feeling overwhelmed, and all the stories start running through your head. And we'll get into this more on a different episode of how the dismissive avoidant will then deactivate. They have strategies that they use, things they tell themselves of like why this can't work, or we'll talk more about that. But anyways, my point being, notice that feeling inside yourself of like, whatever that is, if it's like, oh my gosh, I got to get out of here. I got to get away from this. This could never work, whatever. Notice what that is. And just even be able to say, I need some time to myself. just even communicating something so simple as, I need a few hours to myself. I need a day to myself. I would encourage you to try to not disappear for weeks and stuff, especially like when DAs aren't aware of that. That is a very common coping mechanism they use, that they pull away and maybe for a couple weeks or a couple months or whatever. And then once their nervous system, once they've calmed down, then they come back. I would encourage you, now that you're aware, to try very hard to not do that. To say, hey, I do need some space. Can I talk to you tomorrow? Or can I talk to you in a couple days, whatever. But try to begin to communicate even when it is uncomfortable. And remind yourself that it is okay to feel emotions without shutting down. Like, you might need a little bit of time to yourself, but try to allow yourself to feel that. And then the other part is a challenge is maintaining relationships. And an opportunity for growth there is basically reflect on how independence and connection can coexist together. So you don't have to give up your independence to be close with someone. It is possible to have both. I think it's a beautiful thing, like to be able to have your own life and your own interests and your own things and still have connection and relationship with people. It does not, and it should not be that you are just constantly glued together and don't have your own individual hobbies and interests and pursuits and things like that. So, I do want to share, I am super excited about one of the guests that I'm going to have on here soon. I cannot wait for you all to hear her story. She actually originally was a dismissive avoidant, and then she discovered that and sort of moved more into fearful avoidant, and now she considers herself earn secure. Like, she's worked really hard to work through those things. So I definitely cannot wait for you to hear that. I will say, if you are, so as you've been listening to me, if you're thinking, wow, that sounds like me. That sounds just like me. I can relate to so much of that. Just know that you are not alone. There is no shame in how you've learned to protect yourself. And the fact that you're even here listening to this and wanting to understand more about yourself is already a huge step. So celebrate that and release the shame. It serves no purpose whatsoever. It keeps you stuck in a place of I'm bad, I'm not good enough, I'm unlovable, I'm defective, I'm broken, there's something wrong with me. And none of that is true. So, we've talked about what the dismissive avoidant is and the common behaviors, and some ways to grow while you're honoring who you are. I will go into, in another episode, I definitely want to go into a little bit deeper, why the avoidance withdrawal, because I think that is very helpful to I gave you a pretty good overview of it, but still, I feel like there is so much more to that. But I also want to, we'll see. I might do that. Here's your teaser. It's either going to be next week or we'll do another attachment style, and then we'll sort of circle back to that. But anyways, I want to thank you so much for being here. If you've got thoughts or experiences about dismissive avoidant, I'd love to hear from you. And just please remember, there is no rush on this journey. It really is baby steps. And I think the hugest piece, at least for me, was the awareness first, the being able to see it and acknowledge it. And I will say, and I say this with so much love, so please hear my heart, DAs, dismissive avoidants, can sometimes, it is hard for them to look internally, to self-reflect, because they do so much shaming. You naturally want to shame yourself and think you're a bad person, that it feels too painful for you to look within. And so sometimes you would rather turn away and avoid it and use other coping mechanisms too, other things to help numb the pain or numb even seeing it. I'm going to challenge you to take the time to self-reflect, because that is where true growth and healing can begin. As long as we keep turning away and not being willing to look at it, and not look at it in a way of I'm a bad person, but just looking at it from a place of real compassion. Just think of a little kid that is just doing the very best they can, because that's what this is. It is your little inner child that gets scared. And when he or she gets scared, they use the behaviors that they were taught as a child, that they learned to protect themselves. So be really brave and really compassionate and take the time to look within. And that is where you can start to take those small steps to learning something new, relearning what God's already put inside you, because this is your birthright. For whatever attachment style you are, it is naturally your birthright to have a secure attachment, to have healthy relationships. God created you for that. So I send you off with so much love. If you have any thoughts or questions or want to share with me, reach out to me. You can find me on Instagram at Coaching with Renee. You can find me on Facebook and message me there. And I can't wait to meet with you again next week. I'm really loving sharing this all with you. I hope that it is beneficial to you and that you are learning something from it. And alrighty, so I send you off with so much love. Bye. Thank you for joining me on this episode of Breaking the Silence. As we conclude our time together, let us carry forward the stories we've heard, the emotions we've shared, and the connections we've forged. Remember, the journey through grief and loss is not one we walk alone. In the silence, we find solidarity. In our shared experiences, we find strength. And in our vulnerability, we find resilience. If you or someone you know is navigating the complexities of grief, know that there is support available. Reach out, lean on your community, and remember that healing is not linear. It's a journey, and you are not alone. Thank you for listening. Thank you for sharing, and thank you for being a part of this community. Until next time, may you find peace in the spaces between the silence. Please be sure to subscribe below and leave us a review. If you'd like to connect further, you can find me on Instagram at Coaching with Renee.